What's good, family? It's Wealth Whispers again, bringing you another step for us learning together this financial mess. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So we're going to tackle budgeting today. We're going to focus on the average income for a single person as reported by Fidelity and the world population. We're going to focus on those numbers. And we're going to give some examples of what an optimal budget would look like. And I will also break down some of the reasons why optimal is not reality. And we will go into, of course, the reality of the situation for most Americans and how you can budget for that as well. There's 3 different types of budgets that we're going to go over today. The first is called a fixed budget. The second one for our seasonal income people, seasonal work, like our tax preparers, farmers, teachers, contractors, our roofers, etc., so forth. People who are in that category. And then we also will have our variable incomes. So people who are commission-based, people who live off of tips, our small business owners, our gig workers, etc., so forth. All right, so we're gonna have something for everybody today. So again, the average income for a single person, according to Fidelity, is $59,200, give or take, annually. All right, that brings the monthly income to about $4,900. Okay, so ideally, for a budget, you would want 50% of your income to go to your needs, 30% of your income to go to your wants, and 20% to go to savings. Ideally. Okay, so how we want to break this down is that our needs would be our survival essentials, your rent, your utilities, your insurance, your groceries, and your transportation. And then, of course, your wants will be your pleasures, your entertainment, your eating out, and your hobbies. 30% will go there, and then 20% will go to your emergency funds, your savings, your investment and retirement, and then, of course, your debt repayment. Ideally, you won't have much debt. Of course, if this is your first job, if I'm talking to someone younger, if I'm talking to someone older, and we're getting into the aggressive dynamics of, debt repayment, debt elimination, and forth, we'll talk about that when we get to our reality piece. So the example for how you would allocate $4,900, give or take, dollars a month into your 50, 30, and 20% respectively would be you want an average rent. Of course, we're talking about a single person in America, according to Fidelity and a World Population Review, is about $1,500 for rent, which in my area in Dallas is a little higher than that, but I can imagine more radical places depending on if you're in the city, LA, New York, maybe in Chicago, stuff like that could be a little dynamic, of course, but we're talking about average. So I'm just giving that example. Our utilities will be about $250, doable. Groceries, now this is specifically your in-house groceries. Okay, we're not talking about your Uber Eats. We're not talking about your DoorDash. We're not talking about Instacart. None like that. All right, we talking about groceries that go in your refrigerator and your pantry, if you have one. If you don't, your cabinetry and your dry space. All right, $500 will go to that. And then transportation. We're linking it to transportation right now because a lot more people are moving away from having traditional cars. Or there are people who use public transportation. I do understand that there's an element that says, hey, I got a car. How does mine fit? We'll talk about that on the reality piece for that element as well. But right now, I just have allocated about $218 for transportation purposes. All right. Pleasures. So we have 30% there. So we have entertainment and travel. Travel is different from transportation. Travel there would be longer distance travel. So entertainment and travel would be if you are a travelee, if you like traveling, you like going to other places, vacationing, etc. Ideally, you'd have about $700 allocated to travel. I know that's not realistic for everyone. We'll talk about the realistic junk in a minute. Dining out is about $300 a month. I know that might hurt some people, especially if you are single and dating, brothers, especially if you're picking up the whole tab, sisters. You might understand why brothers want to go 50-50. If he is budgeting, he might be showing some, financial responsibility because his wallet can't accommodate. We're talking about average. So if he's not making around 60K, his dine out pool might be a little small. So bear with us, queens. And then hobbies and subscriptions. So that would be about $480 ideally. So I understand that realistically a lot of Americans right now, especially people that I've coached in the past and present, are struggling with the idea that they don't have any what do you want to call it, liberty funds. That's what one of my clients call them, liberty funds, the liberty to do some of the things that we like to do, but we are talking about ideally. So again, if you have no debts, if you are a first time worker, structure yourself now in such a way to where you set yourself up for plentiful later. If we are coming back on the rebound, if we're making better decisions now because we were ignorant to our financial choices and we are trying to climb out of the hole that we dug ourselves in, we'll talk about that reality on the flip side. But this is for our fixed income, our W-2 workers who, does have a job, thankfully, and we're moving forward with that. All right. So savings, huge. It matters a ton, especially in this dynamic. So for our savings pool, 20%, 400 of that is emergency fund. If you don't know what emergency fund is, it's a rainy day fund. If you don't know what either of those is, it's an old crap fund. If you don't know what that is, it's if you lose your job, if an emergency happens, if something goes wrong, you have money set aside to take care of that instead of having to wait for your next paycheck to handle it, or to wait, or to borrow, etc. so forth. You've had foresight instead of hindsight, and thought ahead and made allowances to be flexible in that aspect. $387 goes to investments and retirements. Now, if you're a W-2 worker, there might be options for you to invest in your company's 401k, and they might match up to 7%, I think, is the top end. 3 to 5%, I believe, is the average as of right now for 401k matching. Want to take advantage of that as much as possible. But I will say, having way more control. A lot of times what ends up happening is because 401ks are shrouded in mystery and a lot of legal jargon, and a lot of people really just don't understand it outside of you invest this much, your company matches you, right? A lot of people don't necessarily know what their growth potential is and don't see the exciting day-to-day climb or month-to-month climb or the year-over-year variations of how your money can truly grow for you if you put it away. We'll talk about that more later. So subscribe to the channel if you like it, if you like this information so far. And then last but very not least, is debt repayment of $200. Debt repayment is specific for unsecured debts. Let me repeat that. This is specific for unsecured debt. That is credit cards that are not secured. That is loans that are unsecured. Okay? So that's not your car payment. Your car payment is secured by your vehicle. It's not your mortgage payment. Okay? Unsecured debt, $200. So if you got a credit card payment, that's $150, and you make about $60,000 a year, then you should be putting about, and you want to follow this plan because this works out for you, then you should be putting $200 to paying off that debt as fast and as soon as possible. Holding your investment body and seeing where your money is going and seeing where it's growing provides an extra layer of peace of mind. So because these are wages already taxed, of course, I would definitely suggest placing these funds into a Roth IRA and investing those funds into index funds, REITs, securities, in order to accumulate that compound wealth over time. That way you can see it, manage it, direct it. If you are younger than 18, kudos to you for seeking out this information, and may you continue to seek higher and further forms of guidance in your financial endeavors as your access to wealth and wealth knowledge continues to grow, blossom, and bloom. So that is it. Money's gone. So that's your 50%, 30%, and 20% respectively. Now this is how we're going to turn it into the more realistic aspect. This is more realistic for the average American. The major thing that would change is that unless you are 16, 17, 18, and depending on your circumstance, most people do have a vehicle that they have a payment for. Okay. And that payment ranges depending on if you have a new car or a used car. According to the World Population Review, the average new car payment in America, unfortunately, is $725. That's steep. At a 6-year loan. We're not going to even talk about interest rates. That is steep, America. And by America, I mean the people that's dishing out these loans for these cars. That's crazy. The average used car payment is $550 a month for 5.5 years. Also steep. Very crazy. Very crazy. When you add the average car insurances to that for full coverage insurance average is about $160 a month, which if you add that along with a new car payment, that's about $900 a month, ladies and gentlemen, for vehicle. For your used car, even if they only do liability, that, liability is about $50 to $55 a month. It's still $600 a month. Okay, so that would cut into, again, the wants category of our budget. The wants category, for anybody wondering, is the only category that should fluctuate and vary, unless we are accounting for increasing your debt repayment or something like that. The fund should always come from your wants pile, because sacrificing entertainment for a paycheck or a month is very different than not being able to get to work, not having lights on, not being able to feed ourselves, and not being able to pay rent. And it's also different from not being able to safeguard for our future if any of those things need to happen which is our rainy day fund, and then debt repayment, which is still a bill, and then our investments for the future, right? So we want to, as best as we can, pull from our wants pile first, okay? If we have to pay for other needs. Our fixed income budget, for anyone who's wondering, is ideally is 50 for our needs, 30 for our wants, and 20 for savings. Reaccounting and readjusting our wants category and our needs category to account for a vehicle, whether it be new or used. You need $900, then you would need to add about $700 to your transportation category. However, that would alter our category 70% in our needs, 10% in our wants, and then 20% in our savings. I guess if you guys like this video, we're relatively new on YouTube, so if I can get, let's say, 25 likes on this video, then I'll give impressive tips, tricks, and habit producing skills that will allow and teach and motivate you to stay along the path of the budget, to stay focused and to stick to your budget as easy as possible, and to keep it as easy as possible. That's pretty simple. But I do want to share this beautiful information. So if you do follow the ideal budget of the 50, 30, and 20, this is the financial picture that you can wrap your head around by staying diligent to your savings bucket. Okay? So a 12-month picture, contributions to the savings aspect. So 20% of your income, it will be $11,800 and about $50 will be allocated to your savings. So if you have no debts, then that means $11,850 towards things like an emergency fund in your investments. If you make about $60,000 a year and investing 20% in your savings. If you stick to the breakdown of the $400 toward emergency funds and about the $387 to investments, you would have invested about $4,644 into 401k matching or your IRA. You put yourself in a very, very lucrative position very, very quickly. Continue to follow the path. Say, for instance, you don't have any debt, but you're going to create a debt account for paying off potential future debts. Again, we're being proactive and having foresight here, and that would put you at $2,400 in potential debt finance. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in regards to controlling your narrative as far as being your own bank, borrowing against yourself, both from your IRA and potentially from an account like a debt account as well. There's many different strategies and things that you can use to set yourself up. And you think that's some information that you want to know? Write me a comment and let me know. Like this video if you let me know. And subscribe if you think this is amazing content. If you want to see how far your finance can go, even from a first-time job, from within your first year, I tell a lot of people you'd be pleasantly surprised. Okay, so that's fixed budget. I hope that helps. So this is another edition, another time, another class, another conversation of Wealth Whispers. My name is Ryan. Some people call me So. I look forward to our continued conversation.